Hey, welcome to Exchange. I'm Joey. I want to do a quick little video on this. I saw this article from CNBC, and this is from Mary Barra. Made some pretty bold claims, basically forecasting, basically at or near record levels in 2022. She's saying chip shortages are going to go down the second half of this year, which is a pretty bold claim. It's really the first article we've seen, the first news we've seen, and I mean, I would say since almost COVID began that we've actually had a positive semiconductor story going forward. So yeah, basically her comments were just basically saying, hey, she's gonna, projecting these strong gains. I actually went and dove into the actual earnings call. So Emmanuel Rosner from Deutsche Bank, basically asked him, hey, how's your confidence so high that you're be able to produce 25% to 30% more vehicles in 2022 versus 2021? So basically, what she's saying here is, hey, from Q3 to Q4 is calendar year Q3, calendar year Q4. They actually got quite a bit better on the semis or semiconductors. So it's like, hey, she's saying, hey, this has been a pretty solid, into the fall, into the winter time. It's been pretty positive. And she's saying, hey, now so far after the new year, it's been even more positive. Not in this is like positive in this time period, but for Q3 and Q4 of this year, it's gonna be a lot stronger sales, a lot stronger chips basically available for the production overall too, which we'll see what happens with this. I mean, it's a pretty strong claim. Obviously, she could be a little biased here. It's like basically saying, "Hey, we're gonna have strong growth and strong supply growth across our entire portfolio." Obviously, GM's been hit pretty hard by the COVID variants and everything else too. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, but you can see here, I mean, inflation for cars and autos has been one of the biggest factors driving this whole CPI kind of scare we've had. Even the growth we've had, where we had the 7% inflation print, I mean, it's a huge part of it. I mean, look at here. This is from Car Gurus. They do a quick little price trends index. You can see year-over-year growth. I mean, it's really from 20 or 30 to 40% roughly. Obviously, some of the more some tiers are much higher or much lower, but it varies. But look at sedans here, your common cars, year-over-year growth 38%. I mean, just massive increase. I mean, if you sold a car in the last year, I mean, I'm sure you made a ridiculous profit going forward. If you're trying to buy a car right now, I'm sure either they don't have your inventory or style you want in the stock, or A, or B, you're actually paying the price well above MSRP plus pricing, which hopefully will go down in H2 of this year. But yeah, this has definitely been a huge trend. We'll see if Mary Barra is right. Another thing to look at here too. So this is from the Fed or St. Louis Fed. This is total vehicle sales year over year. So you can really see here from 2014 to 2019, right before COVID hit, we're basically averaging 17 million vehicle sales per year. You see a big drop, obviously, when COVID first hit, and then a big spike up in 2020 and 2021. Basically, as we went through our excess inventory, we basically cleared out the entire excess inventory across all the auto lots across the U.S. Now we see this big drop down, but what happened here, we saw in the summer into the fall into the winter, is basically the vehicle lots basically having no cars available. You really walk on a lot now, there might be like 3 or 4 cars at most, and the prices are all jacked up there too. We did see a bounce in September a little bit, where it's flatlining a little bit. But like we're seeing here is early phases of demand supply catching up a little bit. I mean, obviously it's way behind. But if she's saying, if Mary Barra, CEO of GM, is saying, hey, 30% growth potentially, and let's look at that across all the entire auto industry as a whole. Let's say, hey, compared to 2020 or 2021, they're going to have 30% growth in car supply. I mean, you're going from there from roughly 13 million all the way up to probably 17 million potentially in 2022, which is almost near historical demand. Obviously, there'll be some volatility there, but I mean, looking at 2018, 2019, all the way back to 2014 roughly, I mean, 17 million would probably match or maybe just come below historical demands, which is really interesting there, because if it catches up, potentially even slightly catches up to demand, I mean, you're gonna see a massive price drop. Even the fear of demand catching or supply catching up is going to drop prices pretty drastically across the board. You can see some of these year-over-year trends go pretty negative pretty fast. And look at the CPI index I report every month with the Fed. I mean, it's going to show up some big negative numbers. And auto sales is roughly, if I remember correctly, 7% of CPI data. So it's not massive, but it's a large part of CPI. So I mean, this summer, maybe more likely this fall in Q3, late Q3, we might see some massive, basically auto-driven CPI negative number, basically deflationary numbers across the board, which could drive CPI not negative, but it could drive it close to that zero mark potentially by late summer, early fall time frame. But yeah, definitely keep it top of mind and definitely be advised of that. Last thing I want to touch on, this is from WallStreet.com. So in January, the CPI for new vehicles, the way they measure it, it changed. So basically, it went from like historical projection pricing to transaction-based pricing. It doesn't really matter at all, but just know if you want to research this, I'll drop this in the actual description. But basically, the CPI data we're going to have with the new version coming in, it's going to print a little bit hotter. And hotter, I mean higher inflationary numbers versus historical trends. Hopefully, the Fed will print both numbers. That way, people know, hey, it's not getting worse. It's just the way we measure CPI for new vehicles is going to change a little bit. But just be aware of that. That way, if you see some hot numbers and February, March timeframe, don't be alarmed from the auto sector because it is changing. It's going to change, but yeah, definitely, this is definitely a big change we've seen from past articles about historical semiconductor shortages. I mean, hopefully it changes because auto sales. I mean, it's been crazy with the prices we have now. But yeah, definitely drop your comments below and let me know in the future if I can change anything or do anything different. But yeah, subscribe and let me know.